Okay, so now that we have everything set up and we've saved our file, we want to bring that image into Maya. And so we're going to create a little object, a plane, just a flat piece of geometry to put that on. So the easiest thing to do is just to, and I'm recording this now, so I will post it online afterwards in case you don't finish today. Under Create, we want to create a nurbs primitive, but before we select anything, I want you to turn off interactive creation here. There's a check mark beside it, so click on it so the check mark goes away. And then we want to go back to Create Nurbs Primitives and select a plane. And so create NURBS primitive plane. And it should create a little plane in the middle of your world here. If I hit 5 on my keyboard, I can go into shaded mode. 4 goes into wireframe, just as a reminder. And this is the we're going to use for an image plane to put that picture on. So if we select this plane, and if I hit E, I go into rotate mode, and I want to rotate this towards me. So I can just grab this blue line. Yours might be a little bit different, but just grab it and drag it. So you can see I'm rotating this object. And I can see that I'm rotating it in the Z dimension here. And it's gone negative 69. I know I want to rotate it 90 degrees, so I can just click in that field and type 90. And now it's upright the way that I want it. Now I want to make it the right size. I've got that image of the eye, and I'm going to put it on this plane. I'll come around to make sure everybody's up to speed after. But I want this to be actually the size of the eyeball that I want to model. So each of these grid lines here is 1 centimeter, and I know that the eye is about 24 millimeters in diameter. So I want to make this about 2.5 grid points big. So I could do this by typing it into the scale. So here I've got scale X, Y, and Z. Remember, X this way, Z this way, Y that way. So if I type 2.4 into all of these, and hit enter, it should make it the right size, and it looks correct. So it's 2 units wide and 0.2 on this side and 0.2 on that side. So I can select it again. Now I want to put that image on here, so I have to put a new material on this object. So if I just select it and right click over it, you can see a contextual menu will come up. And I can go down here a little bit to where it says assign new material. And the one that I want to assign is a Lambert. Lambert's the name of the guy who invented it. I don't know. So nothing really seems to change, but then this should pop up, which is our attribute editor, which gives us information about this material. So you can see that in our world here it's gray. Our color attribute shows it being gray, but we want to put that image on it. So instead of clicking in the color field here, if we go over to the little checker box here, we click on that, it's going to give us the option to add a file to this attribute. So I can click on that. It has a lot of little steps, but it will open up a new attribute here, or a new node with different attributes. And we've got the image name, and I can click on the little file folder, And it should, if we set our project correctly, take us right to our text folder where we'll see the eye profile. If it didn't, then you'll want to navigate there to wherever it is. But let me just finish this and I'll come around and make sure everybody is good. So I can open that. And now it doesn't look like anything has happened in the world here, but if I hit 6 on the keyboard, it shows me that that image is now on my model. So 4 is wireframe, 5 is shaded, 6 is shaded and textured. So if there's a texture on something, an image applied to something, we can see it there. That's pointing in the wrong direction, so I can select it and just rotate it up, selecting the axis here. And again, I just want to do it 90 degrees so I can rotate it a bit and notice that it's rotating and rotate Y here, so around the Y axis. And I can type in 90. So now we've got an image in the middle of our world that we can use for modeling too, so we can make the eye match this planned geometry. And this is essentially what you'll be doing with the whole face model. You'll have an image in the world that you're modeling to. Does everybody have something like this? Okay. Let me stop and just everybody try and do this so we can move on to the next step. Okay. Good. So you got that. So once you have that open, you want to add color to this. Instead of color, we're going to add the texture. So if you click on that, it will give us the option of adding a bunch of different things, but instead of that file, because we have the file to do that. And then we'll open this up, and then now we want you to find that image here. So we click on that, takes us to the right spot. We'll put 6 on the keyboard. There you see something else. And now yours is a little different than mine. You don't have that same channel box anymore. So you can set whatever. So this shows you the so whenever you're working in Maya, and you right click on something, it brings up the texture. So if I right click, you can set an image here. Here, once you've done that, it brings up it's 600 keywords. So you can see. It's fine. It's just that sometimes when you try and rotate, this is you think you're grabbing the line there. Oh, no, maybe. Okay, let me move on. Most people have got it, and I'll come around afterwards. So this is a pretty simple modeling exercise, really. Um, all we want to do is make a curve. So imagine drawing a curve from this point, following this profile down to this point, and then revolving it like a wire around, and we'll leave a surface behind it. But one of the things that will make it easier for us is if we select this plane and lock it so we can't accidentally move it. Now, one thing I noticed, my setup is a little bit different than yours, so if you're seeing things in your interface that are different than mine, please tell me, because I've got preferences that are a little bit different. So when my attribute editor came up when I was changing the color and stuff, yours came up in the sidebar here and replaced this view. So if that happens, you can get back to that view with these buttons up here in the corner. So this one brings this channel box that shows this sort of stuff. The one beside it brings the tool settings, and this one brings up that attribute editor where you were changing the material and stuff. And this is all contextual, so whatever I have selected will appear in this editor. And you can see there are tabs up at the top there that show different things, like that Lambert that I created. That material is actually here too. But we want to go back to the channel box, which is this button in the far right. That brings up information about this NURBS plane. But it also brings up this thing that says display and render. Does everybody see that? Okay. So this is where we can add display layers so we can easily hide objects or lock them. So under here there's a little icon, I don't know what it is, a plane with a star above it. If we click on that, it will create a new layer. And if we select this plane in the scene, so it's active, and just right-click over top of the layer, we can just say Add Selected Objects. And now I can turn its visibility on and off. And I can also lock it with the square beside it. If I hit it twice till it says R, that means reference, which means it's visible but not, can't be manipulated. So it's visible in reference mode. So I can't accidentally move this plane anymore. So that's setting up a layer, selecting the object, right-clicking, and saying Add Selected Objects. Yep. Yeah, you can't select it anymore. You've already done it. Yeah, now you can select it. Well, okay, so now the next thing I want to do is actually start modeling, but the important thing here is that, remember, we've got this perspective view where we can tumble around, but it's hard to get a real feel for what you're doing because you've got foreshortening and actual perspective, so you don't know the depth of your actions. So the better thing to do, and you'll do this when you're modeling the head, is to go into the orthographic views. So if you just tap on your spacebar to get these 4 views up, you'll see in one of the views, in my case it's the side view, yours might be the front view, you can actually see the plane there. If I hit 6 on the keyboard, again with my mouse over top of it, it will turn on textured mode, and if I tap my spacebar with my mouse over this window, it will maximize this window. And then I can zoom in. And remember, these shortcuts are Command right mouse click, you're zooming in and out. Left mouse click, you're tumbling, but of course I can't tumble in this view because it's an orthographic view. And then middle mouse, along with Command, I can click and track around. So this is where we're actually going to do our modeling, because there's no depth to worry about here. Everything will happen on this plane. So when we're drawing the curve, it won't be drawn off 100 miles away from us. It'll be right where we want it to be. So this grid is kind of in my way. So I can say show and turn off grid if I want to, but not essential. Now I want to start drawing a curve on this object. So I go to create and choose CV curve. It will change my icon, my cursor, which means I'm ready to start drawing a curve. And I can zoom in close, so I can do it right on the midline here. So you can see I'm right here at the middle of the cornea, and I just want to start drawing a curve. So I'm just going to click and then start moving up and staying on this line. Oop, I'm on the wrong line. The outside line. Click, click, click. And when the fourth click happens, you'll see another line appears, and that's actually the curve itself. It's a little hard to see on my screen up there, so I'm trying to keep it in the middle of the black line so you can see the white line that's forming behind it. Yeah? Oh, or is that a sneeze? Okay. And then I can left mouse click, and you can see that I can, before I release the left mouse button, I can continue to place the next dot. And then release, and then click and release. And when there's a tight turn, like where the cornea merges into the globe of the eye, I might have to add a few more dots so I can make that turn more quickly. And I'm just going to continue going around, following this. So when I want to move my camera, remember I'm just going to, it doesn't cancel my action, I can just hold down Command and move my camera over. And I'm just trying to be true to what the line is showing me in the drawing. So I'm getting down towards the end now. I want to click down here and then as closely as I can click in the midline here directly below the last one. So if I hold down Shift before I do my last click, it will line it up vertically with the last one. So just hold down Shift and click. And so I've drawn my whole profile, and I can just hit return, and it turns that into a curve. So you can see mine is a red line. Yours is probably green. Now if I turn off the visibility of this display layer that has the eye on it, the eye image, you can see I've made a curve in 3D space, but it's perfectly flat. And now I'm going to use this to create the eye. And after I do this, I'll stop and you can all work on it, and I can come around and help you with that. So I'm going to select this, and I'm going to perform an action called a revolve. So the easiest way to access this is to go to, you can see in the menu up here, there's a lot of stuff going on, but in the far left, they'll probably say polygons or something up there. We want to change that to say, click down and change it to surfaces. There are just so many menus in Maya that you can't show them all at once, so these are menu sets. So we change it to surfaces, and then again we still want this line selected, We can go to Surfaces and Revolve. So there's up here in the menus now, there's one called Surfaces. We can go to Revolve and open up the options. You shouldn't really have to change anything except choose what axis we want this to revolve around. So remember, imagine this is a wire being spun around on this middle axis here. It's going to leave a surface behind it. So I think the axis we want it to spin around is probably this blue one, which is the z-axis. I think, I might be wrong. So the axis preset here, we can just change to z. And if I click Revolve, then it works. And we've made a 3D object out of a 2D curve, or a linear element anyway. And you can see that it's maintained the shape of the cornea here, so it's not a perfect globe. It's taken the profile of that curve and revolved it around. And so we've made our first 3D model anatomically correct to match the eye. Now it's not perfect. I can see little lumps and bumps in here, but it's good enough for what we need it to do. And last thing I'll do before I stop is I'll name this surface, so I'll select the surface itself. And then in the channel box here, remember press this button if this doesn't appear. It says Revolve Surface 1, we want to call this eye. Okay, I'm going to stop my recording and I'll come around.